What is wrong with you? I am not even satisfied. I want more. You got tired quickly. She is cursed. No man in the entire village can satisfy her. She can never marry one man.
Oh, what is wrong with me? Am I really cursed? Why is it that no man ever said...
Welcome to Heritage Story, your #1 folktales channel for amazing stories.
The bedroom door slammed open and Adanma stumbled out into the moonlit courtyard, her wrapper barely tied around her waist. Behind her, Obinna collapsed against the doorframe, his chest heaving like he had just run from Lagos to Onitsha without stopping. His face was pale, his legs trembled, and sweat poured down his body like he had bathed in palm oil. The other men sitting under the Udala tree stopped their conversation and stared. This was the 5th man in 3 months. And just like the others, Obinna could not satisfy her urge. The elders had warned him. They had all warned him. But Obinna thought he was different. He thought he was stronger. Now he stood there, broken and gasping, while Adanma walked past him without a word, her eyes empty and tired. If you think the story is already shocking, wait until you hear what happens next. Subscribe now and don't miss a single moment of this incredible journey. Adanma walked to the village well with her head held high, even though she could feel every eye in Obosi following her like flies on overripe mango. The women whispered behind their hands. The men looked away when she passed. Even the children had started singing songs about her, cruel little rhymes that made her want to disappear into the forest and never return. She was 24 years old, beautiful as a rising sun, with skin like polished mahogany and eyes that seemed to hold secrets older than the village itself. But none of that mattered. In Obosi, she was known as the woman no man could satisfy, the woman with the curse, the woman whose urge was so powerful that it drained men of their strength and left them humiliated. She hated that name. She hated the reputation. Most of all, she hated that she did not understand why she was this way. Her mother had died when Adanma was only 12, and before she passed, she had whispered something strange to her daughter. "You are not cursed, my child," her mother had said, gripping Adanma's hand with the last of his strength. "You are chosen. One day you will understand." But Adanma did not understand. All she knew was that every time she let a man into her life, into her bed, into her heart, something inside her became restless. It was not just physical. It was deeper than that. It was like a hunger that could never be filled, a longing that stretched beyond flesh and bone. And the men, poor men, they tried. They truly tried. But they always left exhausted, broken, ashamed. Some of them never spoke to her again. Others left the village entirely. Obinna was supposed to be different. He was a strong farmer, a man who could carry 2 bags of yam on his shoulders without breaking a sweat. But even he could not handle her. By the time Adanma reached the well, she was crying. Not loud sobs, just silent tears that rolled down her cheeks and disappeared into the red dust at her feet. She lowered the bucket into the water and waited. That was when she heard footsteps behind her. She did not turn around. She knew who it was. Nkairu, the village gossip, the woman who had made it her life mission to remind everyone of Adanma's shame. So, Obinna has joined the others. Nkairu said with a laugh that sounded like a hen choking on corn. "How many men now? Adanma? 6? 7? Maybe you should start counting so we can keep track." Adanma pulled the bucket up slowly, her jaw tight. "Leave me alone, Nkairu," she said quietly. But Nkairu stepped closer, her voice rising so that everyone nearby could hear. "You are a disgrace to this village. You are a curse. No wonder your mother died young. She probably could not bear the shame of raising a daughter like you." That was when Adanma snapped. She turned around so fast that water sloshed out of the bucket and splashed onto Nkairu's feet. Her eyes were blazing now, no longer sad but filled with a fire that made Nkairu take a step back. "Say one more word about my mother," Adanma said, her voice low and dangerous, "and I will make sure you regret it." For a moment, the whole village seemed to hold its breath. Nkairu opened her mouth, then closed it again. She knew better than to push further. Adama was not just any woman. There was something about her, something that made even the bravest men uneasy. Nkairu muttered something under her breath and walked away, but the damage was done. The whole village had heard. And that night, as Adama lay on her mat staring at the ceiling, she made a decision. She would leave Obosi. She would go somewhere far away where no one knew her name, where no one whispered about her curse. But before she could pack her things, she heard a knock on her door. When she opened it, she found herself staring at a man she had never seen before. He was tall and lean, with kind eyes and a smile that seemed to light up the darkness. He wore simple clothes, the kind a palm wine tapper would wear, and he carried a calabash in one hand. "My name is Chike," he said softly. "I heard about you, and I do not believe you are cursed." Adama stared at him, her heart pounding. "Who are you?" she asked. "And what do you want from me?" Chike smiled again, and this time Adama felt something she had not felt in years. "Hope, I want to know your story," he said. "Not the story the village tells. Your story, the real one." Adama did not know what to say. No man had ever asked her that before. They only wanted one thing from her, and when they could not handle it, they ran. But this man, this stranger, was different. She could feel it. "Come back tomorrow," she said finally, "and I will tell you everything." Chike nodded and turned to leave. But before he disappeared into the night, he looked back at her and said something that would change her life forever. "I think your urge is not a curse, Adama. I think it is a gift, and I think I know how to help you understand it." If you want to know what Chike meant and what happens next, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Next chapter will blow your mind. Don't miss it. Chike returned the next evening just as the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple that reminded Adama of her mother's favorite rapper. He sat on the wooden stool outside her hut and waited patiently while she finished sweeping the compound. Adama watched him from the corner of her eye, trying to figure him out. Most men would have been nervous, fidgeting, stealing glances at her body. But Chike was calm, almost peaceful, like he had all the time in the world. When she finally sat down across from him, he smiled and offered her a cup of fresh palm wine from his calabash. "I tapped this myself this morning," he said. "It is sweet, just like the stories my grandfather used to tell me." Adama took the cup but did not drink. "Why are you here, Chike?" she asked. "What do you really want from me?" Chike leaned back and looked up at the sky, his face thoughtful. "When I was a boy," he began, "my grandmother told me a story about a woman in her village who had the same reputation as you. The elders said she was cursed, that no man could satisfy her urge. They treated her like an outcast, just like they treat you. But my grandmother believed differently. She said the woman was not cursed. She said the woman carried a spiritual energy, something passed down from her ancestors. It was not about the body. It was about the soul." Adama felt a chill run down her spine. Her mother had said something similar. "What happened to the woman?" she asked quietly. Chike sighed. "She died alone, because no one understood her. No one tried to help her. And I promised myself that if I ever met someone like her, I would not let the same thing happen." Adama stared at him, her mind racing. Could it be true? Could her edge really be something spiritual, something deeper than what the village believed? She wanted to believe him. Good, she wanted to believe him so badly. But she had been hurt too many times before. "How do you know I am like that woman?" she asked. "How do you know I am not just broken?" Chike reached across and gently took her hand. His touch was warm, comforting, nothing like the desperate grabs of the other man. "Because I see it in your eyes," he said. "You are not broken, Adama. You are searching for something. Something the men of this village cannot give you because they do not understand what you need." Tears welled up in Adama's eyes. For the first time in years, someone was seeing her, really seeing her, not as a curse, not as a burden, but as a person. Over the next few weeks, Chike visited Adama every evening. He never asked to come into her hut. He never made advances. He just sat with her, talking, laughing, listening. He told her stories about his life as a palm wine tapper, about climbing tall trees and feeling the wind in his hair. He told her about his dreams of owning a small farm one day, of raising children who would know what it meant to be loved. And slowly, carefully, Adama began to open up to him. She told him about her mother's death, about the loneliness she had carried ever since. She told him about the men who had used her and abandoned her, about the night she cried herself to sleep wondering what was wrong with her. And Chaik listened. He never judged. He never interrupted. He just listened. The village, of course, noticed. They saw Chaik visiting Adama every evening, and the gossip started again. But this time, it was different. This time, people were not just talking about Adama. They were talking about Chaik too. One evening, as Chaik was leaving Adama's compound, he was stopped by a group of men. At the front of the group was Amaka, a wealthy trader who had tried to court Adama years ago and had been rejected. Amaka was a proud man, the kind who did not take rejection well. He hated Adama for humiliating him, and now he hated Chaik for succeeding where he had failed. "So you are the fool who thinks he can tame the cursed woman," Amaka said, his voice dripping with mockery. The other men laughed. Chaik did not respond. He simply tried to walk past them. But Amaka grabbed his arm. "Listen to me, palm wine tapper," Amaka hissed. "You are wasting your time. That woman will destroy you just like she destroyed all the others. And when she does, do not come crying to us." Chaik looked Amaka in the eye, his expression calm but firm. "Maybe the problem was never Adama," he said quietly. "Maybe the problem was you." The laughter stopped. Amaka's face twisted with rage. "What did you say?" Chaik pulled his arm free. "I said maybe you were never man enough to understand her, and that is why you failed." Before Amaka could respond, Chaik walked away, leaving the group of men standing in stunned silence. But Amaka was not the kind of man to let an insult slide. As Chaik disappeared into the night, Amaka turned to his friends with a wicked smile. "If Chaik wants to play the hero," he said, "then let us give him a reason to regret it." What did Amaka plan to do? And how will it affect Adama and Chaik's growing relationship? You need to see what happens in next chapter. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss the next part of the story. The lie started small. A whisper here, a rumor there. Amaka told the women at the market that Chaik was only pretending to care about Adama, so he could use her for money. He told the men at the palm wine bar that Chaik had a wife in another village, and was just playing with Adama's heart. He even told the village priest that Chaik practiced juju and was using dark magic to control Adama's mind. Within days, the entire village was talking. And this time, the gossip was not just about Adama. It was about both of them. Adama heard the whispers when she went to fetch water. She saw the suspicious looks people gave Chaik when he walked through the village. At first, she tried to ignore it. She had dealt with gossip her whole life, but this was different. This time, it was not just her reputation at stake. It was Chaik's too, and she could not bear the thought of him suffering because of her. One evening, Adama confronted Chaik as he arrived at her compound. "You need to stop coming here," she said, her voice shaking. "The village is turning against you because of me. Amaka is spreading lies. People think you are a fraud. I cannot let you destroy your life for me." Chaik set down his calabash and looked at her with those calm, steady eyes. "Do you believe the lies?" he asked. Adama hesitated. "No," she said finally, "but that does not matter. The village believes them, and soon they will make your life unbearable." Chaik smiled. "Let them believe what they want," he said. "I am not here for the village. Adama, I am here for you." Tears streamed down Adama's face. "Why?" she whispered. "Why do you care so much? You do not even know me." Chaik stepped closer and gently wiped a tear from her cheek. "Because I see you," he said. "I see the woman the village refuses to see, and I am not going anywhere." But Amaka was not finished. A few nights later, he and his friend set fire to Chaik's palm wine tapping shed. It was not a big fire, but it was enough to destroy all of Chike's tools and calabashes, everything he needed to make a living. Gone. When Chike arrived at the scene the next morning, his face was pale. He stood in front of the charred remains of his shed, his hands hanging limp at his sides. Adama was there too, having heard the news from a neighbor. She ran to him, her heart breaking. "This is my fault," she sobbed. "This is all my fault. Amaka did this because of me." Chike turned to her, and for the first time, she saw anger in his eyes, but it was not directed at her. "No," he said firmly, "this is Amaka's fault, not yours, and he will pay for this." Adama grabbed his arm. "Do not do anything stupid, Chike. Please. He is too powerful. He has friends everywhere. If you confront him, they will destroy you." Chike stared at the burn shed for a long moment. Then he took a deep breath and turned to Adama. "I am not going to confront him," he said. "Not yet, but I am going to find out the truth about your urge. And when I do, everyone in this village will see that you were never cursed." Adama did not understand what he meant, but before she could ask, Chike was already walking away, heading toward the edge of the village where the oldest elder lived. His name was Okonkwo, a man so ancient that people said he had lived through 3 kings and 2 famines. If anyone knew the truth about spiritual curses and ancestral energy, it was him. Adama watched Chike go, her heart pounding. She wanted to follow him, but something held her back. Maybe it was fear, or maybe it was hope. Hope that Chike would finally find the answers she had been searching for her whole life. That night, Adama could not sleep. She lay on her mat, staring at the ceiling, her mind spinning with questions. What would Okonkwo tell Chike? Would he confirm that she was cursed? Or would he reveal something else, something that could change everything? She thought about her mother's last words. "You are chosen." What did that mean? Chosen for what? As the first light of dawn crept through her window, Adama heard footsteps outside. She sat up, her heart racing. The door opened, and Chike stepped inside. His face was pale, his eyes wide. "Adama," he said, his voice trembling. "I know the truth, and you are not going to believe it." Adama stood up, her hands shaking. "What did Okonkwo say?" Chike took a deep breath. "He said your mother was a priestess, and you inherited her spiritual energy. Your urge is not about physical satisfaction. It is about emotional connection. It is about finding someone who can see your soul, not just your body. And until you find that person, the urge will never be satisfied." Adama felt like the ground had disappeared beneath her feet. "What are you saying?" she whispered. Chike stepped closer, his eyes locked on hers. "I am saying that I want to be that person, Adama. I want to see your soul. I want to love you the way you deserve to be loved." Before Adama could respond, the door burst open. Amaka stood there, flanked by 2 of his friends, all of them carrying machetes. "You think you can just humiliate me and get away with it?" Amaka snarled. "Tonight, you both pay." What happens next will leave you speechless. Make sure you are subscribed and hit that notification bell because next chapter is coming, and you do not want to miss it. Drop a comment and tell us what you think will happen. See you in the next chapter. Amaka and his friends stepped into the small hut, their machetes glinting in the dim lamplight. Adama's heart hammered in her chest as she backed against the wall, her eyes darting between the 3 men and Chike, who stood perfectly still in the center of the room. "Get out of my house," Adama said, her voice shaking but fierce. Amaka laughed, a cruel sound that echoed off the mud walls. "Your house," he sneered. "This whole village knows you are a disgrace. And this fool," he pointed his machete at Chike, "thinks he can save you. Tonight, I will teach both of you a lesson you will never forget." Chike did not move. He did not raise his voice. He simply looked at Amaka with those calm, steady eyes. "If you touch her," Chike said quietly, "you will regret it for the rest of your life." Amaka spat on the ground. "I am done talking," he said, and he lunged forward. What happened next was something Adama would remember for the rest of her life. Chike did not fight. He did not pick up a weapon. Instead, He stepped in front of Adanma and raised his hand. "Stop," he said, his voice ringing with authority. And then something strange happened. The air in the room seemed to shift. A wind blew through the hut even though all the windows were closed. The lamp flickered wildly, casting long shadows on the walls. Amaka froze mid-step, his eyes wide with fear. "What is this?" he whispered. "What kind of juju are you doing?" Chaik did not answer. He simply stared at Amaka, his eyes blazing with a light that did not come from the lamp. And then, from outside the hut, they heard a voice. An old, powerful voice that made everyone's blood run cold. "Amaka," the voice said, "put down your weapon. Now." The door opened, and Okonkwo stepped inside. Okonkwo was older than anyone in the village could remember, his face lined with wrinkles that told stories of decades past. He leaned on a carved walking stick, but his presence filled the room like a storm. The two men with Amaka immediately dropped their machetes and fell to their knees. Even Amaka, proud and arrogant as he was, lowered his weapon. "Elder Okonkwo," Amaka stammered. "I was just—" "Silence," Okonkwo commanded. His voice was not loud, but it carried weight that made even the walls seem to tremble. He turned his gaze to Adanma, and his eyes softened. "Come here, child," he said gently. Adanma hesitated, then stepped forward. Okonkwo placed a hand on her head, his touch surprisingly warm. "Do you know who your mother was?" he asked. Adanma shook her head, tears welling in her eyes. "She was a healer," Okonkwo said. "A priestess chosen by our ancestors to carry their spiritual energy. And you, Adanma, inherited that gift." The room fell silent. Even Amaka seemed frozen in place. Okonkwo continued, his voice steady and clear. "Your age, as the village calls it, is not a curse. It is a test. The ancestors gave you a powerful emotional energy, a longing that can only be satisfied by true love. Not lust, not physical acts, but genuine, selfless love. Every man who came to you seeking only pleasure left empty because they could not give you what your soul needed. But this man," he gestured to Chaik, "he understands. He sees you not as a body to conquer, but as a soul to cherish. That is why the ancestors brought him to you." Adanma felt her knees go weak. She looked at Chaik, and for the first time, she understood. The restlessness, the hunger, the endless longing. It had never been about physical satisfaction. It had been about finding someone who truly saw her. Someone who loved her for who she was, not what she could give them. Okonkwo turned to Amaka, his expression hardening. "And you," he said, his voice like thunder, "you have brought shame to this village with your jealousy and lies. You burned this man's livelihood out of spite. You spread rumors to destroy an innocent woman. The ancestors see everything, Amaka, and they are not pleased." Amaka's face went pale. "Elder, I did not know." "You knew," Okonkwo interrupted. "You knew, and you did it anyway. From this day forward, you will leave Adanma and Chaik alone. If I hear that you have troubled them again, I will call upon the ancestors myself, and they will deal with you." Amaka nodded frantically, his hands trembling. He and his friends scrambled out of the hut so fast they nearly tripped over each other. Okonkwo watched them go, then turned back to Adanma and Chaik. "The path ahead will not be easy," he said. "The village will take time to accept the truth. But as long as you have each other, you will be strong enough to face anything." He placed a hand on Chaik's shoulder. "Take care of her," he said. "She is precious, and the ancestors have chosen you to protect her." Chaik nodded, his eyes never leaving Adanma's face. "I will," he said. "I promise." After Okonkwo left, Adanma and Chaik stood in the quiet hut, the weight of everything that had just happened settling over them like a warm blanket. Adanma wiped her tears and looked at Chaik. "You really meant it, did you not?" she asked. "Everything you said." Chaik smiled and took a hand. "Every word," he said. "I do not care what the village thinks. I do not care about the gossip or the lies. I care about you, Adanma, and I will spend the rest of my life proving it to you." Adama felt something break open inside her, something that had been locked away for years. It was not her urge. It was her heart. For the first time since her mother died, she felt whole. She felt seen. She felt loved. But just as she leaned into Chaik's embrace, they heard a sound outside. Footsteps. Lots of them. Adama pulled away, her eyes wide with fear. "What is that?" Chaik moved to the door and looked out. His face went pale. "It is a whole village," he said. "They are coming here." The final chapter is next, and you will not believe how this story ends. Subscribe now, turn on notifications, and drop a comment telling us what you think is about to happen. Trust me, next chapter will leave you speechless. By the time Adama and Chaik stepped outside, the entire village had gathered in front of her compound. Men, women, children, everyone was there, their faces lit by torches that flickered in the cool night air. Adama's heart pounded. She expected anger. She expected accusations. But what she saw instead was something she had not seen in years. Respect. The crowd parted, and a group of elders walked forward, led by Okonkwo. Behind them were the women of the village, including Kairu, the same woman who had mocked Adama at the well. And Kairu's face was full of shame. She could not meet Adama's eyes. Okonkwo raised his walking stick, and the crowd fell silent. "People of Obosi," he began, his voice carrying across the compound. "For too long, we have judged this woman without understanding. We have called her cursed when she was chosen. We have shamed her when we should have protected her." The crowd murmured, shifting uncomfortably. Okonkwo continued, "Tonight, I stand before you to tell the truth. Adama is not cursed. She is a daughter of a priestess, chosen by our ancestors to carry a powerful spiritual energy. Her urge, as we called it, was never about physical desire. It was about her soul seeking true love, the kind of love that sees beyond the body and touches the spirit. Every man who failed her did so because they came with selfish intentions. But this man, he gestured to Chaik, he came with pure intentions, and that is why the ancestors brought them together." A woman in the crowd spoke up, her voice shaking. "But, Elder, how do we know this is true? How do we know she is not just because I have seen it?" Okonkwo said firmly. "I have spoken to the ancestors in the sacred grove. They have confirmed it. Adama carries a bloodline of healers and priestesses. She is a gift to this village, not a curse." Slowly, one by one, the people began to nod. Some of the women stepped forward, tears in their eyes. One of them, an elderly woman named Maman Gozi, approached Adama and took her hands. "Forgive us, my child," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "We did not know. We did not understand. Please, forgive us." Adama felt tears streaming down her face, but this time they were not tears of pain. They were tears of relief, of healing. She looked at Chaik, who stood beside her with his hand gently resting on her back, and she felt something she had never felt before. Peace. But then, from the back of the crowd, a voice shouted, "This is nonsense." Everyone turned. It was Amaka. He pushed his way through the crowd, his face twisted with rage and desperation. "You expect us to believe this story? You expect us to worship her like some kind of goddess? She is nothing but a—" Okonkwo's walking stick slammed against the ground, and the sound was like thunder. "Amaka," he said, his voice cold as ice, "you have said enough. If you speak one more word against this woman, I will ensure the ancestors deal with you personally." Amaka opened his mouth, then closed it. He looked around at the crowd, but no one met his eyes. Even his friends had abandoned him. He was alone. Finally, with a curse under his breath, Amaka turned and stormed away into the darkness. The crowd watched him go, and then, slowly, they began to clap. It started with one person, then another, and soon the entire village was applauding. Children ran up to Adama, laughing and dancing around her. Women embraced her, whispering apologies and blessings. Men shook Chaik's hand, thanking him for his courage. For the first time in her life, Adama felt like she belonged. Over the next few months, life in Obosa changed. Adanma and Chike were married in a ceremony attended by the entire village. Okonkwo himself performed the blessing, calling upon the ancestors to protect their union. Adanma's urge, that restless longing that had haunted her for so long, finally disappeared. Not because she had conquered it, but because she had found what it had been searching for all along. True love. Chike rebuilt his palm wine tapping shed with help from the villagers, and together he and Adanma started a small farm. They grew yams, cassava, and vegetables, and they used the profits to help other outcasts in the village, people who had been rejected, misunderstood, or shamed. Adanma became known not as a cursed woman, but as a healer, just like her mother before her. And on quiet evenings, when the work was done and the sun was setting, Adanma and Chike would sit together under the Udala tree, holding hands and watching the stars. Do you ever regret it? Adanma asked one night, choosing me, despite everything the village said. Chike smiled and pulled her close. Regret? He said. How could I regret finding the other half of my soul? Adanma rested her head on his shoulder, and for the first time in her life, she felt complete. The curse was never a curse at all. It was a gift that led her to the love she had been searching for all along. Years later, when their first child was born, a beautiful daughter with a mother's eyes and her father's calm spirit, the village celebrated for 3 days. Okonkwo came to bless the baby, and as he held her in his arms, he smiled. This child will be great, he said. She carries a bloodline of priestesses and the love of 2 souls who refuse to give up on each other. The ancestors are pleased. Adanma looked at Chike, and they both smiled. They had been through hell and back, but they had made it, together. And as the village sang and danced around them, Adanma whispered a prayer to her mother, wherever she was. Thank you, she said. Thank you for telling me I was chosen. I finally understand now. The end. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe, like, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment below and tell us what you learned from Adanma and Chike's journey. And remember, sometimes the things we think are curses are actually blessings in disguise. We will see you in the next story. God bless you.